Mike,
Jake,
it's Thursday. Did you know that?
I did know that. I know that because I every Thursday morning I get up and I look back through the week of news and get my mind straightened out on what's worth talking about this morning. Turns out there's a lot we're talking about.
There is. That's funny. I was getting my back straightened out. My man, like sitting in my basement for a year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my back. I don't know. I think I'm getting old.
So I know I'm getting old, but we should talk about something else. Having the music studio down the street and being able to go down there and like play drums for 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
to take a break. That's really good for me.
Yeah.
It's not good for anybody. It's really good for me.
I saw your studio. If anybody is ever in Bremerton, oh my God, his studio is pretty fantastic.
Did you see it? Where did you see it?
Huh? When you showed it to me.
Oh, I showed you a picture?
No, Mike. I was there in person.
I don't remember taking it to the studio. Okay. All right.
Talking about getting old.
Getting old.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So how's your week been, Mike?
Well, crazy. I don't know if this is unique to me, but every time there is big events like the Colonial Pipeline, President's Executive Order, everything stops to handle requests for comment and analysis, and it's not even over. We have CNN later today, right? We did a panel on the Colonial Pipeline event on Tuesday, and there were some really good revelations that came out of that. I mean, apart from talking to the media, engaging with the people in our panels, and everybody lighting up the chat like that and throwing ideas. That was really great, right? We really did get some good ideas that came out of that.
For example?
For example, if the Secretary of Homeland Security has a $25 million response and recovery fund, which to my knowledge is still not authorized by Congress, but just let's say that he gets what he wants, and we couple that with an outright prohibition on paying out extortion demands to ransomware operators, we would break the business model of the criminals. That's a really good idea. And I don't know if that's what that response and recovery fund is supposed to be for, but if it is for that, that's a really good idea.
It was a really good panel. I put the link to it in the chat. We threw it on YouTube in case people are interested. Hey, by the way, speaking of things that you've forgotten, have you forgotten you just got CISO of the year?
Okay, well, that's a nice recognition, but I know a lot of people that are more deserving of that than I. I mean, there's a lot of these awards that get presented at RSA every year. I actually remember presenting an award for SC Magazine to someone a few years back. I had to wear a tux all day long for one photo.
You had to wear a tux? I got to see this. I got to see a photo.
No, I've burned them. And I think this award says more about the efficacy of our PR folks than anything. Still, thanks. I think the review committee really liked the Pisces project more than our stellar audit results.
I think the stellar audit results I think everybody gets awards for stellar audit results. I think that's what it's really all about.
Yeah, participation trophy.
So on to the news. What do you want to talk about? There's a lot in the news blast this week worth diving into, I think. No, I mean, there's a ton that happened, Mike.
No, there is a ton that happened.
Oh my God. What do you want to start with?
Well, what I want to talk about is the legislation that's been passed by the House and that's going to move on to the Senate. Hopefully it will not be mired in the partisan crankcase sludge that is the legislative branch of government, but we'll have to see. Things that happened this week. Scripps Health is still down. They're still not talking about it. Still nothing on possible records disclosure. So I think the assumption is all the records have been taken. Ireland's health system has been hit with ransomware, and they're refusing to pay out. They're also having a lot of difficulty serving patients.
Yeah.
Right, because they have a national health system, and the interconnectedness there is such that nothing with a switch seems to be operating. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but they're really down. Found out that 20,000 VA records were exposed online, including the full armada of personal and health data. and somebody found this during testing, found, an exposed database with no credentials that you could just, so, they found it during testing. They stopped it. Probably it was never found by anyone else ever, for sure. Insurance rates are spiking. Deductibles are going way up. I'm working with
you
one of our
brought that up
customers
this week. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it's really the one customer I'm working with. They're talking about they're getting a 100 to 200% increase. They have to smooth things out with 6 underwriters instead of 3. I mean, it's getting crazy.
Hey, so I actually realized I don't know this, Mike. How much does cyber insurance cost? I mean, I know it's different for the size of business and this and that, but like, I have no idea. Is it $10,000 a year? Is it
Well,
is it
so
50?
well, it depends on your amount of coverage. The company that I'm working with right now, I have one of those virtual CISO positions, and I'm just kind of helping them get straightened out and get somebody permanent hired. But they paid $300,000 a year for, I think, $10 million in coverage the last time, and now it's all being negotiated again. And their rates are going to go way, way up, and they think they're going to be more like a little more than $600,000 a year, and their deductible is going up to $5 million.
Wait,
So
whoa, their
from 1
deductible
million
is
to 5 million.
uh, well, okay. I mean, okay, whatever. Seems like time to find. I mean, if Geico did that to me, I'd move to State Farm.
Well, this is cyber insurance.
I know, but anyway, that's crazy,
Everything's
Mike.
more valuable when you affix cyber to the front of the word.
Ooh, do you think that'll help our salaries?
Or scarier. I mean, depending on
Right.
how you want to use it.
Right. All right. So keep going. You were talking about the news of the week, and I interrupted you.
Yeah, let's see. We were on insurance. How about the Pentagon surveilling Americans without a warrant? That one's cool. Manufacturing really in the sights of the extortion operators right now. So the semi trailer maker utility, that's manufacturing. They're down. There's really a lot of pieces coming about, and this is not surprising. We've been talking about this a lot. Operating in the gray zone, irregular warfare, distinguishing between state and criminal actors. There's a lot of talk going on around that right now, and I think there's going to be some policy coming out of government soon to close the gap between those two sets of actors and start treating them like it's one and the same, because it actually is. Have you heard about triple extortion? Triple extortion. So they've done double extortion one better. So ransomware operators now extort business partners as well as holding your records and encrypting your, operational capacity. That's awesome.
Not a surprise. I mean,
well,
a new way to rob the bank.
Yeah, a new line of business. There's an announced Wi-Fi vulnerability. Like everything that has Wi-Fi is vulnerable to this thing. Don't freak out. You need physical access. It's not that big of a deal. There are vulnerabilities you'd have to chain together. On the other hand, there is some Android malware out there that's using, I think, 4 0 days, and it's under active exploit. Google's not saying a lot about this. But what they do say is that the exploit is so sophisticated, it's got to be a nation state group that's doing all the activity right now. And finally, in threats and vulnerabilities, there's a wormable Windows HTTP vulnerability that we got to get patched, because that's the kind of thing that'll spread through your network immediately. What else? It's not Verizon. Somebody else came out, maybe it is Verizon, came out with a report that said that the time to detect compromise in your network is now something like 11 days, right? Used to be 200 days. So, hey, everybody's gotten a lot better. So there's a good piece of information right there.
I haven't seen that one. I'll go look for that. Clearly a slow week, Mike. Seems boring, nothing going on. But, last week we talked about the Biden executive order. A lot happening in Washington. some of these laws need to change if we're, I mean, it can't be that companies are paying $600,000 for $5 million in deductible. And like none of this is not sustainable.
It's not. Yeah. I mean,
So, I mean, change
well,
Congress.
so all the things we talked about last week, right? Mandatory reporting in 36 hours, mandatory log collection to make available on request, supply chain security requirements for anyone doing business with the federal government. Um, that's all ending up in legislation and executive orders. All those recent events, SolarWinds, Exchange, Excellion, Colonial Pipeline, those are all being reflected in the executive order that we've already talked about, and a whole bunch of legislation that is now actually passing through at least one house of Congress. And again, I don't want to beat this too hard, but also as a result of these things, the cyber insurance rates are going way up. And there was one article that said, let's see, the crisis will intensify ongoing trends toward lower capacity and higher, and this is from an insurance rag, as well as ransomware sublimits and co-insurance. It will also encourage insurers to demand policyholders adopt basic cybersecurity measures before agreeing to provide coverage. Wow. So, you're going to be held to a standard. And we've talked about this before. Eventually, it's not unconscionable that rather than a whole bunch of regulatory oversight and all of those things, if you want to be insured, you will have to meet the requirements that are given to you by the insurance company, because they're the one that has the risk dog in the fight, right?
Well, I mean that does make some sense, right? I mean, different cars cost different amounts to insure.
Mm-hmm.
Different types of businesses cost different amounts for, malpractice insurance. Like that, I don't know. That makes sense. Legal malpractice is different than medical mal. I don't know. That's not crazy to me. And we've talked before about how the insurance companies overextended here. A global attack and they could break.
They're going to tip over.
And we talked about that in the panel the other day. Their business model perpetuates ransomware, how criminals use insurance to set the level of extortion demand.
Mm-hmm.
The whole business model, might just need to be broken. $600,000 insurance for $5,000 deductible.
That's $5 million deductible.
Did I say 5,000? Sorry, 5 million. Clearly, I need more coffee. But let's talk a bit about the other legislation here, Mike. So, the House just passed a number of bills. Your fingerprints actually are on one of them, right?
That is right. This was a few years ago, and that tells you how long it takes to get legislation through Congress. I worked with Derek Kilmer's staff. He's the House of Representatives congressman for District 6 in Washington State, where I live. And we have the highest concentration of military anywhere in the country. We also have more shoreline than anywhere else in the country. So that one is HR 3138, the State and Local Cybersecurity Improvement Act. And it's $500 million in grants for state, local, tribal, and territorial governments to secure their networks. Still, it's in question as to what it will pay for, because there's a lot of rules around how you use grant money, but that one's finally moving. The others are interesting too, and some of these are kind of knee-jerk responses that got through really quick. So there's the Cybersecurity Vulnerability Remediation Act, and so that's to help critical infrastructure owners with mitigation strategies around all those vulnerabilities that they don't patch. And by the way, when there was a great article this week about how when a vulnerability is released, the criminal operators are scanning for exposures of that within something like 10 minutes. Unbelievable. To continue, we talked about State and Local Cybersecurity Act. There's the Cyber Exercise Act. So that's an exercise program to bring everybody to the table and say, let's practice this stuff, so when it happens, we're ready to go. There's the Pipeline Security Act, which clearly that one got through quickly, and that's to enhance pipeline security, and that means it's going to give TSA, Transportation Security Administration, it's going to kind of solidify their statutory oversight. And then
so does that mean you have to take off your shoes to work on the pipeline?
Quite possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this one called the Domains Critical to Homeland Security Act, and that's all about supply chains, and that's going to be more of the same. We are just going to hear more and more and more about supply chain security and provenance of all the pieces that go into technology. That's not going to go away.
I thought of a better joke there. Does that mean all petroleum has to come in 3.2 fluid ounce bottles?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hey, but seriously, I mean, that's all well and good, but did they say anything nice about West Virginia or Maine? Otherwise, how are they going to get through the Senate?
I don't know. TBD. I think there's a good chance for the state and local, and the Pipeline Act, but Senate's a tough place.
Yeah. All right, we're coming up on time. You got a kicker?
I have selected a kicker.
Ooh, and just so everybody knows, kicker's the end that makes you smile. I have one too, and it's a surprise to Mike. So, Mike, go ahead with yours, and then I have one.
Okay. Well, this is from Brian Krebs' website, and it's the one weird trick, because everybody knows about the one weird trick, right? It turns out that a lot of ransomware and other nasties are programmed to terminate themselves if they detect a Russian keyboard. So if you install the Russian character set, you have a bit more immunity to ransomware.
That's telling, but it's not a kicker. It didn't make me smile. It does. It's
clever. It's so clever.
It does explain maybe why I get so many LinkedIn requests in Russian. Should I accept those, Mike, when Natalia wants to talk to me on LinkedIn in Russian? Should I say yes?
Only for surveillance purposes to find out what they're up to.
Except I don't speak Russian. My ancestors, but not me. And I don't think my ancestors in the shtetl were doing ransomware. So, all right. So I got one.
So what's yours?
So this is, I guess this isn't a kicker, but oh my God, big talker this week. A professor wrote in The Hill about, we should stop doing what cyber professionals
I read
say.
this. This was the biggest piece of drivel I've ever read in my life.
And among the things that he said was, if you have an InfoSec professional and they mess up at all, you should fire them on the spot.
Yeah, he said one strike policy is what he called it.
One strike. Mm-hmm. And you should never hire anybody from a firm that has been the victim of a cyber attack.
Yeah, that guy can KMA too.
I mean, what? What kind of thinking is this?
The reception of this article has not been good in the information security community. Unsurprisingly.
I don't think he wanted it to be popular. I think he wanted it to be popular for CEOs and CFOs who could be like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah. But, I hired reporters for years and years in news stations. And one of my interview questions for reporters was always, tell me about the time you got something wrong. Mm-hmm. And if they ever answered, I never got anything wrong, then they either weren't paying attention to their own to their own reporting, or they were lying, because everybody gets something wrong. Like it's part of the thing. But it's all about how you deal with getting something wrong, how you fix it, what you do about it. Same thing here, right?
I almost picked this article to eviscerate in today's LinkedIn thing.
I wasn't going to let you get off without eviscerating it.
So is that supposed to make me smile? Is that warming my heart?
No, but I was just annoyed you didn't bring it up, so I thought I'd stick you with it.
Well, it's not like I didn't see it. One strike, please.
All right. Well, tonight's my last T-ball game as coach with my son. So there's we have a one strike and you're out in 5-year-old T-ball.
Okay.
That works well.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have an awesome Thursday.
See you, Jake.
Bye.